With the AHA at her back and the eagerness of dozens upon dozens of new, inexperienced bounty hunters joining the fray within the hunting grounds, Lynch couldn't help but marvel at the progress she had made. They were all so greedy, so rash, impatient, willing to throw themselves at the corruption for the prospect of earning a poor man's labor. Never before had she seen so many people eager to die for so little. It was almost beautiful. Lynch's visions would also become more and more frequent. In them, she saw herself triumph over darkness with two silhouettes at her side, and the cards, which she consulted on the regular, agreed, foreshadowing her as the victor in this paranormal struggle, should she find the right help. And as if prompted by the cards themselves, whispers from the corners of the bayous reached Lynch's ears. Durant the Blackcoat, a ruthless murderer and infamous hunter, had been killed. Not a strange thing, considering he was a vicious man who had made dozens and dozens of enemies throughout the bayous. However, what was strange was the people who had finally managed to kill him. Two young girls, twins actually, by the name of Jose and Fina, who at the young age of 16 had managed to kill one of the most notorious independent hunters of the bayous, all by themselves. But that wasn't all. There was a touch of irony to the story, so sweet that Lynch, a woman who didn't believe in coincidences, was certain these girls were the silhouettes she had seen in her visions of triumph, and she was eager to meet them. Accompanied by her faction members, Lynch tracked down the girls and found them within a small cottage in the swamp, and when she laid eyes upon them for the first time, she wasn't disappointed. Strong for their age, having been raised by a smith, they had worked the forge and anvil from childhood, and were exceptional in the creation of weapons, tools, and equipment. The girls remained silent, eyeing up this strange woman now standing in their home, inquiring about them killing Durant. They nodded. Durant had killed their father, so they had killed him, and burned the bodies afterwards. Curious as to how two young girls had managed to kill such a ferocious hunter like the Blackcoat himself, whether it had been luck, a stroke of fate, or something else. Lynch inquired whether the girls actually knew how to use any of their weapons and equipment. Before she finished her sentence, a bolt from a crossbow whistled through the air, striking the man standing behind Lynch in the chest, sending him crumbling to the floor in a painful groan. A subtle smile ran across Lynch's lips. She was impressed, but Lynch knew something the twins didn't, the whole reason she was there to begin with, and revealed that the blacksmith, who had raised and fostered them all of their lives, wasn't their father at all. The man who had come to reclaim them, William Durant the Blackcoat, the man the twins had killed, was actually their father, and now dead by their own hand. Lynch told them that he had killed their mother 16 years before disappearing, and probably came back now to finish the job. The twins reacted with indifference. They were cold and laconic by nature, not unlike Lynch herself at that age. Now almost twice as old as them, Lynch saw possibilities in the two girls and offered training if they would help her fight against the corruption, suggesting that they might get answers about their past life and family should they choose to follow her. The twins didn't need to consider their answer. They would. Lynch took to the role of training the twins, weapons, shooting, and tactics. The twins were naturally gifted killers, just like Lynch suspected, and they learned quickly, embracing the art of hunting, stalking, tracking, and killing, carving out the hearts of many other hunters, gaining notoriety within the bayous as the prospects of Lynch. Feeling the balance of power shifting in her favor, Lynch's confidence was growing, and the cards told her that the twins were almost ready. With the presence of the AHA and the twins behind her, Lynch began a violent campaign that left a trail of blood and bodies across the bayous. Wielding her infamous machete, a blade that had cut down more innocent people than both hunters and monsters altogether, and was covered in demonic engravings, pentagrams, and other infernal symbols. She also carried an automatic shotgun nicknamed the Black Widow. It was obvious Lynch's choice of weapons reflected her personality. She was up close, personal, and deadly. Demons, monsters, men, it didn't matter. She would annihilate anything that got in her way. Her reputation for extreme violence, extortion, manipulation, and human sacrifice preceded her. But what stood out most among the stories about her was her ability to sustain ungodly amounts of injuries. Stabbings, shrapnel from explosions, gunshots, whatever people would throw at her, she remained relentless, pushing through mortal wounds that would have killed a regular man, determined to destroy anything in front of her. Lynch carried herself with such disregard for her own life that people began to speculate that she might not have been human at all, and what started out as rumors that she might have been cursed by the corruption itself slowly turned into an urban legend of her being something out of this world, something else, something immortal. And in the middle of all this commotion, Lynch seemed to finally have attracted the attention of something from the other side. Something that knew what Lynch was planning, and that something would try to interfere. A deity from the other side saw the lethal allies the twins had become to Lynch, and in the darkness of night, it made contact with them. The deity comatose the two twins by injecting them with venom through snake bites.
Do not toward your allegiance so easily. You do not belong to her.
Possessed and incapacitated, the deity tried to harvest their souls, wanting to use them on the other side.
Your second initiation begins today, and ends when you find me again.
But in the nick of time, Lynch got in its way, as she found the twins collapsed on the floor of the smith, immediately recognizing the bite marks of the other deity. The cards and her visions had foretold that if the twins weren't properly prepared, they would either die or join the other side in the fight against her. They had to live. Failing to save the twins with natural medicine and medical procedures, she resorted to dark magic, laying down chalk symbols on the floor, and performed a ritual, hoping it would revive them, or at the very least, prevent their souls from passing over to the other side. Luckily, the ritual was a success, and the twins both came to, and while the process of recovering from the effects of the snake deity would be long, Lynch had averted immediate catastrophe. However, the voice of the snake was etched into the minds of the twins.
Lynch cannot be trusted.
In the wake of Lynch's crusade against darkness, Dr. Huff Jones had benefited greatly, and while he may not have trusted Lynch, the AHA had become a powerhouse of influence within the bayous, where Huff now ruled with an iron fist, no longer looking for the eradication of the corruption, but rather maintaining the current situation, as there are so many benefits in engaging with the dark arts from the other side. Conducting various experiments on the living, the dead, and the corrupted, Huff was chasing the dream of somehow concocting a scheme for immortality, hoping to become something more than a mere human. This didn't sit well with Lynch, however, who was hell-bent on destroying the corruption, no matter the cost. And the lack of progress from Huff and his goons, who were more interested in killing other faction members and each other for their own greedy personal glory than they were eradicating the corruption, had her worried and angry. Lynch requested a personal meeting with Dr. Huff and did what she always had done. She consulted her deck of cards, fanned it out in front of Huff, and made a simple request.
Pick a card.
I don't abide parlor tricks.
Neither do I. Pick one, Huff, and hope it's not the last thing you ever do.
The two of arrows. She wasn't surprised. The card suggested that nature's balance had been skewed by erroneous judgment, based on either her incorrect information or greed. She knew the cards never lied. Huff was in her way. He had become too concerned with reaping the rewards of this plague that was ravaging the bayous to be an actual ally. He could no longer be trusted, but Lynch still had one more mission for him. The mission was the sole purpose behind the twins' training, the retrieval of a weapon Lynch had seen in her visions. But not just any weapon, a weapon in a realm beyond the human world, a weapon with the power to destroy gods. The weapon was contained within a realm outside of Lynch's reach, as her affiliation with the other side prevented her from ever entering. The twins, however, were more than able to enter. Huff wasn't pleased. He knew about the legend of the weapon and considered the mission to be suicide, chasing nothing but a myth. He had sent enough men to their graves already, but Lynch didn't care. The twins were expendable, just like everything else. Nothing was more important than her revenge, and Huff reluctantly agreed, sensing that his life might end abruptly should he refuse her request. Huff provided the twins with enough details to get to the land of the dead, and how to get back from there once they had completed their mission. Huff then sent the twins on their way, and Lynch left him in his office. This complete disregard for his well-being, as well as her own body and life, was immediately apparent to anyone around Lynch. Her experimentation with explosives, toying with rituals of sacrifice, and her attempt to weaponize anything she saw lethal potential in made her a reckless and dangerous individual to both herself and everyone else around her. Rumored to have invented several contraptions used by other hunters, such as the hive bomb and the flash bomb, her reckless nature would finally get the better of her, as one of the explosive devices she was tinkering with went off prematurely, blowing her to pieces in her own camp. Even though she was hard to kill, immortal as some would say, laying on the ground there, all of her clothes torn off by the explosion, bleeding from dozens of gashes and wounds, she knew she had to do something drastic to stay alive. Something that would keep her going for long enough to get her vengeance. In a sea of crimson-red blood pouring from her body, she managed to jam a vitalizing syringe into her arm, giving her just enough strength to gouge out her own eye. She was no stranger to pain. In some sense, she welcomed it, and considering her situation, what other alternative did she have? Her body had served its purpose. The least it could do was to get her to the other side, and with her eye as a sacrifice, she recited an incantation and pledged a sinister oath before she vanished into shadows and darkness.
Your initiation will be completed today.
At the same time, somewhere inside the dead zone, the twins emerged from within the land of the dead. They had gone through an endless maze of tight and narrow cabins, scraping by in knee-deep filth for what must have been hours before finally reaching their destination. With emberstones they had brought for a ritual, they had completed the initiation and transcended to another realm where they stood before the Lord of the Dead. Having surpassed him in a challenge, he granted them the weapon they sought and let them out. But the twins had both heard the whispers of the snake deity within the cave, and it echoed within their heads. Lynch was not to be trusted. While the twins traveled back from the dead zone, Lynch met with Huff once again. The corruption was spreading, and Huff wasn't doing what he was supposed to. Lynch felt they were losing the fight against darkness, and she needed his help for one more task. Her visions indicated she was at a crossroad. Something had to be done. But Huff was busy consulting a female patient by the name of Elli, who was clearly deranged, rattling on about angels in her heart and snakes in her stomach, both of which talked to her inside of her head. Lynch, who didn't believe in coincidences, saw the crossroad right in front of her and immediately sprung into action. Before Huff could even react, Lynch had a jagged knife against his throat and asked Elli what the voices thought of that. Elli replied that the angels were pleased, but the snake wasn't happy about it at all. Lynch didn't hesitate. The knife sliced through skin and sinew, and Huff fell to the floor, clutching his throat. Lynch took Elli with her and left Huff convulsing behind his desk, where he choked and drowned in his own blood. She didn't need him anymore. What she needed was the twins and the weapon. As the three met again within the dead zone, Lynch immediately noticed something different about the twins. Voices and whispers. Voices that spoke through the twins. Voices that hadn't been there before. Voices of a snake. The cards had foretold the truth. They had consorted with her enemy. They would try to steal her chance for revenge. The twins were hesitant. They both felt something had changed. Lynch was not the same anymore. She had been to the other side. Her body was that of a human, but the power emanating from behind her facade of flesh and bone was that of a demon. The twins understood now. The snake had been telling the truth. Lynch wasn't a regular human. She was something else, and she had been using them all along, hoping to sacrifice them to gain the upper hand in a personal grudge against one of the other deities. They were expendable to her, just like everyone else, and she would kill them without a moment's hesitation. Touching the soil beneath her feet, Lynch's arm began to change. Sharp claws of a raptor emerging at the tips of her fingers as she dug into the ground beneath her. From the dirt she pulled out a small man, no larger than a doll, seemingly dead at first. But her whispers and mumbling brought the man back to life in a cacophony of painful screams. As his body turned from human to bird of prey in an instant, the bird immediately rose to the dark skies above, before descending towards the twins, claws extended and with lethal intentions. In the moment before the raptor struck the twins, the ground beneath them ruptured, and a large snake shot out from beneath them, darting towards the bird as the two clashed and tangled up in a ball of blood and death. Seemingly even matched in the beginning, the venom of the snake eventually overpowered and killed the bird, leaving Lynch by herself, now facing 3 strong adversaries.
We could have stopped this together!
Together? You mean that you would have mutilated us and sacrificed our lives to satisfy your own grudge?
Lynch was desperate. Her plan had backfired, and the twins would kill her. The snake had corrupted them both, and Lynch had gone from predator to prey in mere moments. If only she hadn't been bound to this pathetic sack of flesh. In the other realm, she wielded so much power. She was unstoppable. But in this world, she was confined to the body of a mere human. Useless. She was out of time, and the twins moved forward to attack.
Time for you to go home, Lynch.
I am not your enemy!
She shut her eyes, the blue energy emerging from a nearby rift immediately apparent to her. It was her only option. She would have to gather her strength and return stronger. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. As she ran, the twins didn't follow, and as she vanished into the rift, it was by all accounts the last time she was ever seen.
Huff is dead. I know. No one left to run the organization now, is there? Not a soul. Then I guess it's time we found Finch.
The stories of Lynch and her vendetta across the bayous are still to this day shrouded and uncertain. Her cold, calculative demeanor, along with her tendencies to exploit anyone through manipulation, deception, and blackmail, accompanied by her brutal tendencies for murderous rage, as well as her lack of concern for the well-being of herself, her soul, or anyone opposed to her, makes it abundantly clear why she might have been one of the most feared individuals to ever walk the soil of Louisiana. But what Lynch actually was, whether a demon, deity, or something else entirely, where she came from and how, what her motivations might have been for her violent vendetta, or if she's still out there, planning her next step, waiting for her chance to strike, we might never know. Hey there, Hazmat here. That concludes the story of Lynch, and I hope you all enjoyed it. As usual, a big thanks goes out to the Hunters Lounge on Patreon, who helps me decide on future content and which you can join for a single $1 a month. A big thanks goes out to the voice actors of Lynch, the twins, the Snake Deity, and Dr. Huff. It has been a great pleasure working with all of you. And of course, thanks to Rexley and Tip from the Hunt Showdown Discord, whose vast knowledge of the lore contributes immensely to the creation of these videos. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.